humblemud.
I searched through Nintendo Wii enthusiast discussions everywhere in an attempt to determine the 4 most unique and interesting hidden gems for that console out there. And after my search, I think I've found a strong little group of games. Luckily for me, these Wii white whales have been on my radar for ages. So I finally sat down and got to try them, and today I'm going to share my opinions on each one. By the way, make sure you stick with me until the end of this video because I'm also going to be sharing some details on a giveaway that I'm doing. Next week, I'll be giving away 2 free Steam codes for Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon. But first, let's dive into some classic Wii gems. If you grew up with 2005 Psychonauts and were a big fan of that game, I really feel for you because that means you had to wait all the way until 2021 before you'd ever see a sequel. However, around late 2008 to mid 2009, depending on where you're located, there was a game called Mushroom Men: The Spore Wars that likely could have scratched that Psychonauts itch for you. This is a wonderfully wacky game where you control a mushroom man named Pax, who was granted sentience after a meteorite filled with space dust crashes and surrounds the area, mutating everything in its vicinity. While the other mushrooms begin to form colonies around and worship these space rocks, Pax discovers he has this strange ability where he can absorb them. And unfortunately, when he accidentally does so for the first time, he's pretty much forced to leave since he effectively just stole the meteorite from this mushroom tribe. Upon exile, you'll find yourself going on a dark fantasy sort of take on a Toy Story or Bug's Life-like adventure where you'll travel through backyards, run down garages, and makeshift mushroom colonies as you slowly uncover your destiny. Pax tries to right his wrongs by finding meteorite chunks to bring back to the tribe, and of course just continues to absorb them, but you as the player discover that this is actually what makes him stronger, so you have a huge incentive to find them. And you can also scavenge around for various real-life materials like chewing gum, pencils, matches, screwdrivers, etc. in order to make your own weapons, which can vary quite a bit from one another when it comes to how you do combat. And you'll want to scavenge and build new weapons because mutated insects, rats, moles, and even other mushroom people will come out of the woodwork to beat you down. Pax doesn't just swing popsicle sticks around though. In addition to the game's whimsical, dark, painterly art style and offbeat humor, the other thing Mushroom Men has in common with Psychonauts is that, much like Raz, Pax is able to use psychokinesis in order to levitate and throw objects with his mind, open doors, and do all sorts of other things that you'll unlock later. The game features a ton of exploration, often requiring you to get pretty creative with your moveset in order to reach places you may have not thought you could. Thankfully, Pax can use his little mushroom cap to glide, which, by the way, allows him to travel at a much faster rate than the glides of something like Spyro or Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I thought was really cool. He can do that sort of roll into long jump thing, Donkey Kong Country style, and he even has a sticky hand that he can use as a grappling hook that has a surprising amount of reach. And I'll be honest with you guys, despite all of this, it was rare that I collected everything in a level. There is so much to find. Nevertheless though, I loved finding everything that I could find. I loved building new weapons, and I loved finding all those hidden meteorite chunks hidden in tucked away places. One of the moments I really enjoyed in my early playthrough was when I found myself inside of a freezer and discovered a frozen mushroom man. There was seemingly no way to get him out. However, while platforming and playing through the level, I gathered enough material to eventually put together a makeshift flamethrower, and once I returned, I found I was able to thaw the ice enough to save the mushroom man. This was a completely optional encounter, not pivotal to progressing the story. It's secrets like these that make me really enjoy this game, and again, is something I found reminiscent of Psychonauts in the best of ways. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the game's soundtrack. Mushroom Men's OST was composed by Les Claypool of Primus, so it obviously features really fun bass lines and creative compositions that make Mushroom Men have its own unique vibe, and I think even as a 480p Wii game like I'm showing here, the graphics have aged quite gracefully. The only negatives I've encountered thus far is that the boss fights are not the greatest, they don't really match the hype of the rest of the game, the camera can be a little wonky at times, and Mushroom Men definitely feels a little dated as a platformer in some senses, but if a quirky, unique PS2 era platformer is the kind of thing you're looking for, I think Mushroom Men is certainly worth playing. Now, this next one is on Wii Hidden Gems lists everywhere, and for good reason. That's Zack and Wiki Quest for Barbaros Treasure. Man, this is just such a charming game, and it's a real shame that it's never made it outside of the Wii. I mean, it would be right at home on the Switch. This is a gorgeous, cel-shaded game made by Capcom, where you play as the young, aspiring pirate Zack, who's accompanied by his magical golden monkey companion, Wiki. Early in the game, their airship is knocked out of the sky, and they crash land on a mysterious island. Shortly afterwards, they come across a treasure chest containing a golden skull who tells them that he is the infamous Barbaros, the legendary pirate whose treasure they've been searching for this whole time. He tells them that if they can help him gather all of his body parts and become whole again, he'll not only give them the rest of his treasure, but he'll lead them to his pirate ship. They agree to help him, though it's pretty obvious that something about this skull isn't adding up. Keep an eye on him. Anyway, this is a point-and-click style puzzle adventure game that utilizes the Wii's pointer and motion controls in really intuitive and creative ways. Zack and Wiki is definitely one of the best examples out there for showing how Wii motion controls can actually enhance the experience. You'll often find yourself collecting various items around the map and combining them in unique ways in order to open a door or deactivate a trap. The magical monkey Wiki can turn into a bell that, when rung, can transform creatures into tools that you can use to solve puzzles, and you'll do stealth missions like this where you're trying to navigate around the island's natives so you don't end up getting thrown into their stews. Zack and Wiki as characters really don't take anything too seriously, which is something I love. If you stand around idle for too long, Zack will just start munching on a candy bar. No matter how dire the situation gets, Wiki just chirps and sings when he talks. And overall, there's just a ton of humor in this game, and it oozes charm. It actually reminds me a lot of the Mega Man Legends series, oddly enough, so if you're a fan of those games, I'd highly recommend this one, even though the gameplay is different. Wiki looks like he could be Data the Monkey's sibling, Captain Rose reminds me a lot of Tronbon, and the bright, round, and colorful aesthetics as well as the airships really made me think of Mega Man Legends almost immediately. And I guess that makes sense considering this is a Capcom game. I've hinted at this earlier, but more than probably any game in recent memory, Zack and Wiki made me laugh a lot. And I've had so much fun with it, which I think speaks volumes because, to be honest, I'm not really a puzzle game kind of guy. And even though some of the puzzles can be real head scratchers at times, I was really motivated to play. But yeah, don't let that somewhat juvenile look fool you. There's a lot to sink your teeth into if you're into this kind of thing. So far, the only negative I've found in this game is the optional Bonlich rhythm games. You basically have to swing the remote in time with the notes on the screen in order to simulate ringing a bell. Now, I am a musician, so timing the rhythm was not a problem for me, but I just found that more often than not, the sensor bar didn't receive my Wii Remote input very well, so I'd often have to replay these mini games over and over and over again to get a score that was satisfactory. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong here, and eventually I do pass, but the registration of my Wiimote swings just seems a little off in this particular game mode. However, I now see what everyone's saying. Zack and Wiki is a real gem, and it's a shame that this never got to turn into a real franchise with multiple entries. It's a lot of fun. This next game is a WiiWare title, so if you never downloaded it back in the day and only have a vanilla Nintendo Wii, there's unfortunately no way to play it on the console anymore, considering, the Wii Shop channel is closed. But I could probably make a several hour long video discussing all the many reasons why hacking a Nintendo Wii is worth it, and one of the best reasons is to play the Metroidvania platformer Lost Winds. You control a little boy named Toku who stumbles into a cave and discovers the wind spirit Inrul, who tells him that she's been trapped down here for ages after trying to stop the evil spirit Balasar from taking over the lands. Considering you both share a sort of mutual problem right now, being trapped in a cave, the two of you agree to work together to get out of the cave, and your adventure begins from there. Now, this game is also obtainable on Windows via Steam and even on iOS apparently, but I have a strong feeling that the Wii Remote is still the best way to play this game. The reason being is that you control little Toku with a nunchuck and swing the Wii Remote to draw lines of wind gusts to help guide him along, break his fall, or allow him to reach areas that he normally couldn't with his tiny little legs. This type of gameplay can be replicated pretty well with the mouse or touchscreen controls, but the Wii Remote feels really intuitive and really natural for this particular game. Anyway, as you continue along your journey, Inrul gets stronger, which grants you more movement capabilities, and you start to uncover and flesh out the story more and more as you progress. The village's elder seems to have lost his memories, so you go on a quest to restore the memories of the village elder so that you can find out about Balasar's whereabouts and ensure that the world stays safe. And along the way, you'll find that you guys have to work together for everything. Toku is just a little guy, so he's not quite strong enough to lift heavy fruits or chest lids, so your best bet is to grab on and get a good grip with Toku, and then make Enroll produce a gust of wind to give him enough power to lift these heavy things. As you can see, there's so much charm and attention to detail. The environmental sounds are nice, just the movement of your cursor along the screen causes the wind to move through the trees. You can mess with the villagers using your wind gusts. And if you sit around idle for too long, Toku will fall asleep, and the only way to wake him up, you guessed it, quick gust of wind. And of course, as I'm sure you've realized, this game is just a delight to look at. It makes me think of something like Zelda Wind Waker crossed with Studio Ghibli. Lost Winds is a short and sweet, cozy adventure as well. It took me right at 3 hours to beat. But if you're still hungry for more, there's Lost Winds 2 on the Wii as well, where we see Toku going on yet another adventure, this time to try to find his missing mother. Lost Winds is one of those special games that really showed off what talented developers could do on WiiWare despite Nintendo's paltry 40 megabyte requirement, and it's an absolute must to try this one if you've got the means. Also, I just wanted to point out that Enroll, the wind spirit of this game, is green. I'm telling you guys, that trope always comes up and I still haven't forgotten. If you know, you know. Now, the last two games I've shown you are undeniably cute and whimsical, and I think Mushroom Man is even pretty cute in a sort of dark Alice in Wonderland kind of way, but this next game I want to discuss aims to be quite a bit more realistic and grounded, and at times scary. Just a warning, if you've got arachnophobia, maybe this game isn't for you. Yes, I finally tried Deadly Creatures. Only in the 2000s would you see weird, experimental, and totally new IPs, and this one is no exception. This is one of those games that really go above and beyond to craft something totally unique. Deadly Creatures follows the story of two men who are out in the desert looking for buried treasure. These two men are voiced by none other than Dennis Hopper and Billy Bob Thornton, by the way. However, you're not playing as Bowser from the live-action Mario movie or as Bad Santa. Instead, you're playing as a tarantula who has been watching this whole thing unfold from his spider's eye view, I guess. And you can tell that the devs put a ton of time into trying to make everything about these deadly creatures you'll encounter or play as feel realistic and alive. For example, the spider's little legs will tremble and twitch in its idle animations even if you're not doing anything. Of course, you're also able to freely climb up walls as well. Some creative liberties are taken though, like the tarantula's ability in this game to shoot webs at enemies like Spider-Man. Don't worry, they can't do that in real life. Anyway, as if by fate, the spider is pretty much forced to travel along the same path of the treasure hunting men because he's being chased by a rattlesnake. And the first time this guy corners you, it makes for a sick boss fight, by the way. Yes, if you can't tell, this game is very combat oriented, and depending on the way you swing your remote, you do different attacks. But unlike a lot of other combat oriented games that use the Wii waggle, Deadly Creatures control mapping is fairly simple and well put together. I honestly never really felt like my attacks weren't being registered properly. Along the way, you'll find yourself munching on other insects and taking them down for sustenance, and you'll occasionally come across territorial larger insects like other spiders. The biggest threat when it comes to these little guys though is definitely the scorpion, in particular this one. And when you hit the next chapter, plot twist, you're playing as the scorpion. The two of them control completely different from one another. They have unique finishing moves and QTE kills, and the two of them face off against creatures much larger than themselves who can be quite intimidating, like this Gila monster here. I was so hyped for this game back in the day and wanted it so badly. I remember reading that they wanted you to feel like you were almost watching kaiju fights when you played this game, just on a much smaller scale, and even today I think it can really feel like that at times. In a lot of ways, Deadly Creatures also feels like you're watching some sort of nature documentary focused on these two little guys. Off the top of my head, I can really only think of a game like Maneater having a similar vibe in some senses, but honestly, there's not much else like this game. And I have to say, I love this whole whole dual campaign concept, as you know these guys are going to end up together in the end. Arguably the best thing about this game though is that Deadly Creatures has a ton of atmosphere, and if you allow yourself to get really immersed in its dark world and take on that mindset of being a sort of apex predator in this micro environment, you'll find that it offers a strangely appealing vibe that's miles apart from most other games. While I wouldn't say Deadly Creatures is a horror game, it definitely has moments loaded with atmosphere, as I've said, and the underground areas especially almost feel Lovecraftian at times. Of course, there is a little bit of jankiness here and there, but I think you'll find a lot of that can be forgiven considering the novelty that this game has. Considering our two protagonists, I guess, don't understand the concept of a story per se, the story itself is often told quite organically, either through the environment or through you basically eavesdropping on the humans discussing their plans while you're controlling one of these arachnids unbeknownst to them. And yes, of course, the humans will become aware of these creepy crawlies eventually. This is a really cool game, and I hope it gets remastered and re-released one day, considering THQ Nordic owns the rights to this now, and they love to do that sort of thing. Alright, there you go, 4 Wii hidden gems that often go overlooked, but are certainly worth playing. Now, as promised, some details for the giveaway that I'm doing. Awakened Realms reached out to me because they did a huge update to their game Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I did a review of this game earlier this year, and I loved it. It's sort of a dark indie take on Skyrim, but honestly, there are a lot of elements about this game that I actually prefer over the Elder Scrolls series. Anyway, in order to celebrate this major update that they did, they gave me 2 free Steam codes and told me to share it with you guys. So if you'd like to enter, all I ask that you do is you check out the playlist that I've got in the description below. This playlist contains some of my personal favorite videos, but for one reason or another, many of them went vastly overlooked. The algorithm did not care for these videos. They just didn't seem to get the attention that I thought maybe they deserved, much like these Wii hidden gems. And so all you have to do is watch some of these videos. I'm not asking you to watch every single one or anything crazy like that. Just watch 1 or 2 of these videos and leave me a comment letting me know what you think about it. Of course, please make a thoughtful comment if it's obvious that you didn't actually watch the video and you're just trying to, lazily enter this contest. I think I'll be able to pick up on that. But yeah, just give these videos some love, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and maybe you'll find something else really interesting because of these videos. Since these videos are pretty much dead at this point, if you leave a comment, I will see it, and I'll gather a list of all the usernames and randomly select the winner. That's all you have to do to enter. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any Wii hidden gems you'd like to recommend to me, or want to share any Nintendo Wii memories, I would love to read those. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay humble.